Hello everyone and welcome to Kyiv as Ukraine this week prepares to remember that day 4 years ago when the full-scale invasion of their country started. And since arriving here in Ukraine, the thing that everyone tells you, and you can absolutely understand why, is that they want this war to end. They are so weary, they are sick of the power cuts, of the cold, of the fact that everyone knows someone who has lost someone, of what they feel is the endless negotiation that is taking place in order to bring this war to an end. And they talk about the fact that it has been 4 years. People can't believe it's 4 years when President Putin thought that he would come to this capital city within a few days, that his tanks would just roll in here and he would take the city. And yet here they still are after 4 long years, still fighting and still resisting. Well, we have been speaking to President Zelensky and we will bring you that interview in a moment. But let's take you through what has been happening with those peace talks. There's been a meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in the last year. And despite that, no agreement between Ukraine and Russia has been reached to end the conflict. Russia does continue to control large parts of eastern Ukraine. Fighting there continues, as are Russian airstrikes targeting cities right across the country. And we were witness to that ourselves just a few nights ago when we all had to go down to a shelter where we are staying because Kyiv was once again targeted. And the Ukrainian government, well, they put the death toll at the moment, the official death toll, at 70,000. But no one here in Ukraine believes that figure, not even President Zelensky. This number falls far short because there are so many soldiers that are missing in action. There are Ukrainians who have been kidnapped and taken into Russia. And the numbers are not yet known as well from cities like Mariupol. So many people think that that is a very low estimate of the number of people who have lost their lives in this conflict. As for President Zelensky, well, he has been speaking to our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, and he said he believes that Vladimir Putin has started World War III. What he wants, what he has called for time and time again, is sustained military and economic pressure on Russia in order that Moscow now steps back. Have a listen.
We have different views regarding a third world war. I believe that Putin has already started it. The question is how much territory he will be able to seize and how to stop him, not because Russia must not win, but because Russia wants to impose on the world a different way of life and change the lives people have chosen for themselves. Therefore, I believe and have long believed that Putin has already begun this war, and we're preventing it from becoming a broad, full-scale Third World War.
That was Jeremy Bowen there speaking to President Zelensky. Our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams is with me here in Ukraine. He's been here many times. He's been here for the past 10 days. I've only been here a few days, Paul, but boy, when you talk to any Ukrainian here, they say, we just want this to end now. We've really had enough. Where are we at in terms of any kind of negotiation that could bring an end to the conflict?
You're right. They are exhausted. They really desperately want these negotiations to succeed. Although I think it's fair to say most Ukrainians are deeply skeptical that any success is on the horizon. What we have at the moment is a kind of rolling process. We've had now, 3 rounds that have involved face-to-face negotiations mediated by the Americans, where the Russians and the Ukrainians have met and started to thrash out some of the fine print of this. And those discussions there have been political teams, there have been military teams, and you get the sense that at a military level, they are starting to talk in quite practical terms about what a ceasefire might look like, how it might be monitored, the US role in monitoring a ceasefire, and so forth. This morning, for the first time since this format of talks began, we sat down with one of the Ukrainian negotiators. He's a former UN ambassador, Serhiy Kiselitsa. He's been in the room, part of the military side of the negotiations, and he gave us a bit of a flavor of what it's like in the room.
We have, in the last 2 meetings in Abu Dhabi and 1 meeting in Geneva, kind of an agreement at least on 90% of the issues. We're not able to deal with about 10% of the issues because they are politically conditioned.
And that 10% includes the things we're all very familiar with, the status of the remaining part of the Donbass, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Is that essentially what we're talking about?
Exactly, because you need to know where and how the line of contact and line of disengagement goes through the territory, and this line should be is already a quite long one, right? And also then you need to know if the sides pull out or they stay where they stay, and things like that.
You talk to most Ukrainians and they say they never want to see another Russian in their lives. You are there in the room dealing with representatives of a leader who has tried very hard at the cost of more than 1 million of his own men to subjugate and defeat you. What is that like?
I saw much worse, believe me. I spent 5 years in New York. And I told myself, and I also told my staff, you know, don't let the enemy to poison you with their rhetorics. Because if you are poisoned, then you are not operational.
Donald Trump has put an enormous amount of public pressure on Ukraine. Do you feel that pressure from the Americans in the room?
Yes, indeed, there is a lot of pressure on Ukraine. They say, stop the killings, find the compromise. So it's not that you are pressed to the wall by the Americans and they tell you, pull out, but they say, we must find a solution. You must find a solution.
But how much longer can it really go on? Surely the time has come to strike a deal, however painful and unsatisfactory that deal might be.
Right. The degree of resilience and determination of the Ukrainian people is very high. The Ukrainian army of 2026 is nothing compared to 2022. So there is no reason for us to surrender. The war could be stopped just by one call of one person to his chief of staff, military. But apparently the Kremlin dictator is not up to stopping the war for the time being.
I mean, everyone here says, Paul, and it's true, that the one person who can bring this conflict to an end is, in fact, President Putin. And when we think about what's happening on the front line, the average rate of the Russian advance, I've got here, 70 metres a day. It is so slow. They've only taken 1.5% of Ukrainian territory. This is not going well for President Putin. Why doesn't he want peace?
No, that's right, and he's losing 30 to 35,000 men, killed or wounded, every single month. The Ukrainians talk about raising that to 50,000, the point at which they believe he will run out of manpower to replenish his forces. I mean, fundamentally, this is because Vladimir Putin doesn't believe that this place where we're standing is a sovereign state. He does not believe Ukraine is a legitimate state, and certainly not its government. And he wants Ukraine, has always wanted Ukraine to be part of his orbit. And any moves away from his orbit, looking towards NATO, looking towards the EU, is something that is totally anathema to him. It's interesting that a few years ago, you would hear Russian officials saying, we don't really mind if Ukraine joins the EU. Now that that's being talked about, you're starting to hear them talking about that a lot more. He believes he's winning. We don't know what he's being told about the situation at the front line, but he believes he's winning. And of course, he also believes that there's enough evidence in the West of uncertainty, a lack of complete commitment. You know, Donald Trump every now and again feeds this sense that, oh, you know, the White House is on my side. They see Ukraine as having started this war, as Ukraine as being the principal obstacle to ending it. I just need to persuade them that is the case. I think, you know, we're in a situation in which it's a question of Donald Trump's conclusion about who fundamentally is to blame for this, but also about who militarily cracks first. Ukraine has shown astonishing resilience. It continues to show that. It feels it has enough support to continue fighting. Putin, for his part, also thinks that he can continue this almost indefinitely. There are some people who say that both at an economic and a military level, That argument is a little flawed.
Okay, Paul, thank you. It is really striking when you're here in Ukraine because every single person's life is obviously affected by the conflict. And when we talk about the dead and the wounded, I think it's sometimes hard to kind of comprehend the ripple effect that can have on entire families and communities as well. We travelled over to the left bank here in Ukraine to a residential area to speak to Olena and her daughters Sofia and Maria. Olena's husband, Roman, was encircled by Russian troops. Many of his comrades had died. During 8 days, he crawled over to dead Russian fighters to get their ammunition in order to fight back. But he did eventually get killed by the Russians. And when I met Olena and her girls, I was really struck by how united they were, how supportive they were of each other, but how their grief was still incredibly fresh.
Це була неділя. Саме тоді у мене на роботі.
It was Sunday. At that time, I was at work. Then 2 hours later, Roman's brother-in-arms calls, and he says, "Is it true that Roman was killed?"
Лютий загинув.
For me, it was a shock. I say, "This is not true. What are you talking about? He's alive." After lunch, they called me from the military enlistment office. I already understood what they were implying.
Вони мені говорять, де ви знаходитеся?
They tell me, "Where are you located? We are coming to you now." I said, "Don't say this. I know he's alive."
А перед цим я коли почула,
They said he was missing in action. I started crying, and at that moment, Masha comes in to me.
Маша до мене.
Так, я заходжу, і я розуміла те, що
I came in and I understood Dad was gone. For about half a year before that, I'd constantly had this feeling, thoughts like that something wasn't right, something had happened.
я заходжу, і
I come in and my mom is in tears. She drops to her knees. She says, "Your dad is the best."
От, і я розумію, то, що
Я впала на
I fell to my knees and I said, "Masha, forgive me. I couldn't protect your dad."
And Olena, you're a very, very strong woman. Where do you get your strength from?
А діти?
The children. I can honestly say when Roman was killed, I kept asking myself how I will endure this. I honestly didn't know. I knew that I had to become both a mother and father to my children, and I had to be strong. No matter how hard it was for me, I looked at them and I knew I had to live. I had to live to the age Roman dreamed of so that I could meet our children with their children. And I will do that. I will survive.
І я це зроблю, я витримаю.
And Sophia, it's been 4 years since the full-scale invasion. What do you see in the future? What do you want for Ukraine?
перше, це перемога, звичайно. Друге,
Well, first of all, victory, of course. Second, I want all of this to finally end because we want to live fully again. And we want to stop being afraid to fall asleep. We just want even something simple. Our family always loved going somewhere with a tent. And we really want to go camping again because now we know anything can happen. There could be shelling, anything. That's how it is. So we want to go now not as 4, sadly, but as 3, to relax, to go fishing, the way we used to. And no matter how much we didn't love fishing, we will go fishing now to remember our dad.
Все одно заради пам'яті тата перебачили б.
And they showed me some of the photos that they had of the fishing they'd done, and also some amazing photos of Roman and these massive fish that he's caught because it was his favourite pastime. Their strength was so amazing, and when I said to them, "Oh, Ukrainians, they're so resilient," I've learned in my few days here that's a word that Ukrainians are a little bit sick of. Everyone calls them resilient, but the fact is they feel like they don't have a choice. And in some ways it's a word that puts pressure on them to be a certain way. But they are definitely persistent, they are definitely determined, and they are definitely incredibly strong. And that's something you can really feel as you talk to people here in Ukraine, as they really are quite disbelieving that it has been 4 years since they have been enduring this conflict.